So let's talk about the future of Ethereum. And we're not just talking about another crypto, right? For a lot of people, this is the potential backbone for the entire next generation of the internet. And if one prominent analyst is right, it could be on the verge of something absolutely huge. Yeah, that quote you're seeing right there, "We're now entering a supercycle," that's from Tom Lee over at Fundstrat Global Advisors. He's making the case that Ethereum is at the very beginning of this massive, massive run. Look, that is a seriously bold claim, and it's exactly what we're going to unpack right here. All right, so let's get right into it. The supercycle thesis. What does that even mean for Ethereum? And more importantly, what is a supercycle anyway? And why does a guy like Tom Lee think one is happening right now? Okay, so here's the key thing to get. A supercycle is not your average bull run. It isn't just a quick price jump. No, we are talking about a sustained, long-term expansion with absolutely massive price growth. You know those historic, legendary runs that Bitcoin has had in the past? That's the kind of thing we're talking about. But this time, the spotlight is squarely on Ethereum. So you might be thinking, okay, sounds good, but where's the data to back this up? Well, just look at this number, 27 million. That's how much ETH has been scooped up by long-term holders just this year. That is a staggering figure, and it points to some serious, serious conviction in the market. And this is really the heart of the argument. Think about it. Even while Ethereum's price has been under pressure, these long-term believers have just been quietly buying and holding. According to this thesis, that is not a sign of weakness. No way. It's the market acting like a coiled spring, just building up all this tension for a potentially massive move up. Okay, so if the supercycle really is on the horizon, what's going to be the rocket fuel? What's actually going to drive this thing forward? Well, the whole thesis points to three very specific, very powerful drivers. And here they are, the three big pillars holding up this whole argument. First, you've got tokenization. Second is the sheer strength of the Ethereum network itself. And third, its current valuation, especially when you stack it up against Bitcoin. So let's dig into each one, starting with that first driver. First up, tokenization. And honestly, this could be a total game changer. We're talking about taking real-world stuff, things like real estate, art, even company stocks, and turning them into digital tokens on a blockchain. And the big money, the huge institutional players, they're finally starting to jump in. As more of these real-world assets move onto the Ethereum network, well, that's just going to create immense new demand for ETH. All right, driver number two is just the raw strength of the network. And let's be real. Ethereum is the undisputed king here. It's the go-to hub for smart contracts and for DeFi, all that financial stuff that cuts out the old-school banks. It's the foundation for most stablecoins, and it has this massive, buzzing ecosystem of developers constantly building new things. This isn't just about potential. This is established, rock-solid value. And that third driver? It's a classic valuation play. When you look at Ethereum's price relative to Bitcoin, and that's a metric a lot of people in crypto watch closely, it's sitting at historic lows. Now, for an analyst like Lee, that doesn't scream weakness, it screams opportunity. It suggests that Ethereum might be seriously undervalued and has a ton of room to grow just to catch up. This all sounds incredibly optimistic, right? But what does it actually translate to in terms of price? And just as importantly, what are the risks that could throw a wrench in the whole thing? Because let's face it, the path ahead is never a straight line. So what's the big number? What's the price target? Based on this whole supercycle idea, some analysts are throwing out a really bold figure, $12,000. That's the estimate for where Ethereum could be by the end of 2025 if all of this plays out. I mean, that's just a massive potential upside from where we are today. But of course, we've got to look at both sides of the coin here. The bull case is clear. The supercycle thesis holds true, and Ethereum sees that massive upside. The bear case, though, is just as real. You've got broader economic headwinds, things like inflation or interest rates, or the risk of a harsh regulatory crackdown. Any of that could absolutely derail the momentum and lead to more price dips. Volatility is just part of the game. So after weighing all the drivers, the huge price targets, and the very real risks, what's the central takeaway here? How should we be thinking about this exact moment in Ethereum's journey? The crucial takeaway from this analysis is all about a shift in perspective. If you buy into this thesis, that whole idea that you might be late to the party on Ethereum, well, it's just wrong. In fact, it suggests the exact opposite. that we could be standing at the very beginning of its next and maybe its most significant growth phase ever. And so, that leaves us with the ultimate question, doesn't it? Is what we're seeing in the market today the early tremors of a brand new era for Ethereum, a truly transformative supercycle driven by real-world use? Or is it a late, high-stakes gamble in an already famously volatile market? The answer, as always, is something we'll only know for sure in hindsight. Definitely something to think about.